From recorded future news and PRX, this is Click Here. It didn't sound like an alarm. It sounded ordinary, like someone starting work early. It was just after sunrise, and inside the city offices in Borger, Texas, printers sprang to life. No one had sent anything. No one was standing there. One machine just started, then another and another, spitting out page after page. People looked up from their desks, exchanged glances. Maybe it was a malfunction? A software problem? Something local? Something wrong with their system? So people jiggled cables. They restarted machines. They moved from desk to desk, asking the same question. Is this happening to you? All of these printers going rogue at the exact same time. Controlled, it seemed, by an invisible hand no one could identify. One, it turned out, sitting halfway around the world. From recorded future news and PRX, this is Click Here, a show about how technology is changing everything. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. Hardly a week goes by without another major ransomware attack making headlines.
Ransomware attacks are way up in North Carolina.
College students across the country are stranded in a digital limbo.
India's Tata Electronics has confirmed a cybersecurity incident after research.
The names change, but the business keeps evolving. To understand how ransomware became one of the most profitable forms of cybercrime on the planet, it helps to go back to a turning point. And that turning point was Texas. So this week, we're going back to that story, because what investigators uncovered there changed the way they thought about ransomware and revealed that it had become something much bigger than a handful of hackers. Stay with us. For many of us, hacking has a familiar sound.
Just a regular cybersecurity engineer, but I'm a vigilante hacker by night.
One person, one computer, one target. That's the version pop culture sold us, the lone figure, hood up, typing in the dark. What was happening in Borger, Texas, didn't fit that picture. It seemed methodical, like something designed to run and keep running. The person people called when the printers went rogue in Borger, Texas, was this guy.
My name is Jason Whistler, the Emergency Management Coordinator for the city of Borger, Texas.
And it was an early morning in late summer when he first heard about those zombie computers, a Friday.
It was probably around 6:30 in the morning.
And that morning, he did what he usually does before work. He stopped for coffee at the Coffee Ranch, a local place where city workers sometimes meet before the workday really starts.
A bunch of the senior staff were meeting for breakfast before work.
They were still there when Jason's phone rang.
My IT manager called me and informed me that we'd possibly been some sort of a compromise.
Possibly. At that point, no one knew what kind of problem this was. Jason quickly finished his coffee and rushed into work. But by the time he got there, the picture had sharpened. Whatever this was, it wasn't isolated. It was happening in offices all over the state. And it turned out all this printing had a purpose, if you stopped to read what was coming out of those machines.
Some of it was gibberish, but it was very, very definitively, "You're infected, pay up."
You're infected, pay up. It's what's known as a ransomware attack. Hackers break into a system, lock it down, and then offer to give everything back for a fee. Sometimes it's small, more often it's very large. You may have heard about attacks like this, cities brought to a standstill.
Cleveland officials are still offering little detail about the cyber threat that shut down Cleveland City Hall this week.
Hospitals forced offline. Pipelines shut down.
Gas only began flowing again after the company paid a $5 million ransom, according to a U.S.
From the inside, it looked like a local emergency, one town scrambling to keep essential systems running. But they'd later find out that Borger wasn't alone. that this wasn't a local story.
Computers in Texas towns are being held hostage by ransomware, and many of the local governments still have not been able.
Calls like Jason's were being routed to Amanda Crawford, the state's chief information officer, from every corner of the state.
We received a call at our office that an entity had been hit, a local government. And then soon the number had gone up to 2, then 8, then ultimately to 23.
Nearly 24 communities, all hit within hours. They quickly started to assess the damage.
What was hit? What did they have? Let's talk about your servers, your networks, your services, your applications. The folks we were talking to.
Payroll systems frozen. Police departments unable to log in or run license plates. City halls across Texas suddenly flying blind. Fortunately, Texas had prepared for this. They'd recently added cyber attacks to a list of emergencies that could marshal state-level support.
By noon that day, Governor Abbott had activated the Texas Division of Emergency Management's State Operations Center to a Level 2 disaster declaration. This is the same operations center that responds to floods, hurricanes, pandemics.
The attack was so massive, it didn't stay a local story for long.
Never thought that my agency and something we'd be responded to would make the headline on Drudge Report. It's not really a goal of mine, but it happened because this was the significance of this event.
And that's what made this attack different. Not just the damage, it was the ambition. Because an attack on one town is a crisis. Nearly 24 towns is coordination. Kyle Hansloven had seen something like this before. He's spent years tracking government-backed hackers, first at the NSA, and then at a cybersecurity company called Huntress.
Our stuff was nation-state threats. The North Koreas and the Chinas and the Russias and the Iran. Let's go after the ATP, that advanced persistent threat.
Advanced persistent threats. Hackers breaking into systems on behalf of governments. They tend to be more sophisticated, careful. They don't announce themselves. They're usually not looking for a payout. What was unfolding in Texas didn't look like that. This wasn't a nation-state operation. Kyle had seen this kind of thing before, in a case he'd worked a few years earlier.
We got called out because they just happened to be local enough to us that we could make the trip and sit alongside an incident response firm. And during the process, we realized that the actor got into the remote management software.
The actor, meaning the hacker, hadn't broken in directly. They'd come through a piece of software IT teams use to monitor computer systems remotely. That sounds technical, but actually it was a signature, a tell. He'd seen the same move before. In that earlier case, the hackers weren't optimizing for stealth. They were optimizing for efficiency. Instead of breaking into one organization at a time, the attackers went after the tool, the remote management software that connected them all. One entry point, many victims.
They weren't wanting to deal with 50 different unique, hostage negotiations. They didn't want to go to that. They wanted to have one.
When we come back, why this wasn't just a story about a hack in Texas. It was a story about where ransomware was headed and how, of all things, a thunderstorm helped stop it. Stay with us. When Jason Whistler, the IT director in Borger, started to understand what happened, he suspected there had to be something connecting all the compromised towns. And eventually, he found it. Jason Whistler again.
This was a third-party contractor that had remote software to help support our systems, and their system had been compromised, which was the conduit for that, that ransomware to get into our system.
The same third-party contractor handled IT for a huge swath of Texas. So the hackers didn't have to break into individual towns. They just broke into that one system those towns all shared. Borger, for their part, caught a break because of something really mundane.
And a couple of nights before, we had some storms roll through. And when the power flickered, that server shut down and was also offline. So even though a lot of our individual desktops were affected by this through the network, the lion's share of our data that we need for just city operations, utility billing, that was actually preserved on a server that had fortunately, been shut down because of the power issues.
That brief power flicker did more than turn the lights off. It shut down a server. And when the server went dark, the hackers lost their access. They couldn't lock up Borger's most critical systems, utility billing, core operations, the digital plumbing the city needs to function. All of that was safe. Almost by accident, Borger suddenly had leverage. So they used it. They told the attackers they weren't paying.
And it is satisfying that they didn't get anything, but our overall expenses, our loss and the replacement was mitigated by the state DIR. We didn't pay any of the ransom. So all in all, I would call it a successful failure.
And in fact, after the initial shock, all of the Texas towns held firm. Every one of them refused to pay. It felt, for a moment, like a win. But it didn't last. This wouldn't be the last time a coordinated attack like this showed up. In a way, Texas was the beginning, not the end. Kyle Hansloven again.
We went from having, by the way, one incident like that maybe per quarter to we were having one incident per managed service provider per week in 2019. So that's, showing perfecting of the craft. They just realized that it was scalable, meaning they could rinse and repeat the same strategy over and over and over. Same software. Managed service providers had the same they didn't have the greatest IT hygiene.
This was ransomware changing shape. No longer something that happened once in a while and morphing into something designed to repeat, which helps explain how ransomware attacks like this went from rare to routine. And the group that first perfected this rinse and repeat model, it turns out, was the group behind the Texas attacks, a Russian-speaking cybercriminal gang known as REvil.
Everybody generally says REvil, but I hear a revel every now and then, almost like a reveille.
Kyle had crossed paths with them years earlier.
My first run-ins with REvil were probably well before they ever called themselves REvil. And what I mean by that is...
And among cyber guys, REvil already had a reputation. They'd hit law firms, technology suppliers, even global corporations. So investigators understood how they operated. But after the Texas hack, investigators like Kyle saw REvil shift gears because they figured out how to scale the break-in, but not how to reliably scale the profit. And that forced a rethink. Not of the malware, but of the business model. Because if one group carried all the cost and all the risk, one failed attack could wipe out months of work. So the solution wasn't to work harder, it was to work differently. They didn't abandon the model, they just refined it. Not by changing the malware, but by changing how the work was organized.
Their main goal is to make money, and they will not stop on anything until they make this money. They bring new tactics, new techniques.
This is Dmitry Smilyanets. He works at Recorded Future. And full disclosure here, Click Here and Recorded Future News are an editorially independent arm of the company.
For example, they started targeting CEOs and founders of companies. They think that a personal OSINT or bullying of this person, of these people, will help to pressure the victim to pay.
The bigger shift came next. REvil began breaking the job apart, and they began hiring outside specialists and stopped doing everything themselves. Dmitry spent months chatting online with someone inside REvil, a man who went by the name Unknown.
He was not a hacker. He was the operator. He was the manager.
That distinction matters because it tells us what REvil actually was. Not just a group of individual coders writing malware, but an organization running a system.
His job was to control the infrastructure, make sure it all works, make sure that communication line with victims is up, make sure that the payments go through and the affiliates are getting their share. All the hacks claimed by REvil, he was part of.
In other words, this wasn't improvisation, it was coordination. And once you start coordinating work like that, you can scale it. You can bring in more people, you can absorb more failure, you can take more risks. That's the moment when ransomware stopped being something a single crew pulled off and started looking like a business. That's when Revo created what you might call ransomware as a service. Think of it like franchising. Revo built and maintained the software, they ran the infrastructure, they handled the payments. And then they rented the whole setup to affiliates, people who carried out the attacks. In exchange, Revo took a cut. And suddenly, instead of one crew trying to hit hundreds of victims, you had dozens of crews hitting thousands. And once you organize the work that way, with managers, operators, and affiliates, you don't need one perfect hack. You just need a steady pipeline. Enough people doing small jobs over and over. That's why ransomware attacks don't just feel more frequent, they feel relentless. Because once ransomware as a service became the standard, criminals stopped depending on any single victim saying yes. This is Click Here. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Today's show was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gutta, Zach Hirsch, and Maya Fawaz. It was edited by Karen Duffin and Sarah Cavedo and fact-checked by Darren Ankrum. Original music is by Ben Livingston with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, our illustrator is Megan Goff, and our sound designers and engineers are Jake Cook and Jesse Neiswanger. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and thanks for listening.